Hey, folks. Great to have you back again. And we are talking today about something that's really important. I don't know if you guys read that book. There was an essay at first by Eric Raymond on the Cathedral and Bazaar, but that kicked off the idea of the modern version of open source software. And open source has been with us in its current form for about a quarter of a century now. And there is a huge risk lately about whether or not it's going to stick around. There's been a lot going on, and we're going to be talking about that today. We have some news for you with regard to the things that have been happening in Meteor. We want to share those with you. There was some more activity going on with the Meteor Software team. We're going to talk about that also, and we're going to have a discussion today also with regard to this fair uncertainty and doubt about the role and the future of junior developers in our ecosystem. So without further ado, I'm going to say this is episode 57 of This Week in MeteorJS. And you're watching Alim Gafar here, streaming to you live from New York City.
Yeah, and Dvorak, aka StoryTeller, coming to you live from Prague.
Hey, and Jan Küster coming to you live from Germany.
And with that, we'll get right into the news. This week, Meteor Software had a live discussion. They had 4 members on it. I don't have everybody, but Gabs was there. I think Fred was there, and then they had a couple of other folks, and they were chatting about why the value of MongoDB and why it's a useful tool. And I didn't actually get to watch it myself. As a matter of fact, I'm going to admit right now that I did want to watch it, but I missed it. However, we have a link to it, and we're seeing some of the folks back there. There is Serafini. I don't know what his first name is. We have Bruno from the team. We have Fred. I don't think Mr. Serafini is from Meteor itself. But in any case, if you want to watch it, there is a link we're going to be posting. It is accessible on LinkedIn. And I know I'm going to be watching it over the weekend to check it out. It's kind of interesting that they had this episode, this interview, this discussion when they did, because very recently MongoDB released version 8 of their flagship software. And the register notes that they were also making the case that it can handle critical workloads. So I'm not sure whether or not, I've always thought that there should be an episode on MongoDB with regard to Meteor, because, MongoDB is part of the Meteor stack, and it's really, really important. And understanding it allows you to be a better Meteor developer. But in any case, I don't know if it's completely independent or if it's related, but, take it as you will and check it out. All right. And I think, Jan, you've got the next story.
Talking about announcing new releases and everything, we have something from Ivan Yu, who is the guy behind Vue, Vite, and all these amazing things. And the announcing that he's starting a company called VoidZero, and they have raised $4.6 million in seed funding. And the idea is maybe in a way similar to Bond, to take all the tool chains around JavaScript and create unified, high performance, composable, and runtime agnostic system. And they are talking here about pretty much they go with OXC parser, OXC resolver, OXC transform, OXLint, vtest, roll down, and all that stuff into kind of one thing. Bit of a essentially it might be like interest. There are some people kind of curious, but there are some big people behind it as well. And I would say for me, like the big question is, okay, how are you going to let's say make money on this? That's always, especially here in Meteor, we know that making money on open source oftentimes does not go as intended for the companies behind it. I'll reference you to the history of Meteor on the details for that. So that's always a big question. How are you going to make sure that the people who invested into this are going to make back their money, or what are they getting out of it? Because sometimes people invest so that they can, get some tools out of this. So that's something to kind of be watchful. But either way, I think we'll have some interesting tools and super fast tools coming down the pipeline, and it's going to be pretty interesting on that. So yeah, definitely something to watch out for. And who knows, maybe here at Meteor we can also get on the bandwagon and integrate that into our build system and all that stuff. So yeah, check it out. Keep an eye out, because it probably will take a while for them to get organized and going. And when that happens, we'll be sure to let you know on the cool new toys that we can play with. So what's going on, Jan?
Yeah, it's the month of the year. It's Hacktoberfest time. And I shared a little slide with you. Of course, this is the official hacktoberfest.com website, but let me quickly let you know, if you don't know about Hacktoberfest, or even if you know, let me remind you, Hacktoberfest is this great opportunity for everyone to learn coding, contribute to open source and various forms, build your own profile, because every contribution you make is also reflected on your profile. And if we don't have total bad HR, but actually people watching your GitHub profile, then this can get back to you in a very good way. And of course, you're participating, you're joining the community. So this is always a good opportunity for everyone, because people like Jan and me, but also, of course, the Meteor core team, everybody is aware, hey, it's Hacktoberfest. There will be people contributing who may have done their very first contribution. And then, of course, it's sometimes very hard. It's sometimes not easy to understand. And in this month, we're extra careful when guiding people through the PRs. And I mean, there are various forms you can contribute. Of course, code is the most important form of contribution, but it's not always about code. There are also examples or even design aspects. It would be so great if people would do more contributions of designs and logos in the open source realm. So many nice projects could benefit from a great logo just for their own presentation, but also documentation. Things like improving understandability of README, or just trying to reproduce the README installation procedure, giving feedback, and then maybe improving on it. So there's so many opportunities. Don't think about that it's always about having these big contribution to these super bug fixes, but it's also possible to do smaller things. And if you don't know how to participate, it's pretty easy. You go to hacktoberfest.com. You can register. If you have a GitHub account already, you can just authorize with your GitHub account, and then you can then you can pick repositories that are marked as tagged as Hacktoberfest on GitHub, and lots of our community packages, repositories in the MCP that are actually Hacktoberfest tagged. So you can pick issues, you can try to provide any pull request. And yeah, let us know if you're participating. If you want to participate, you can also reach out to us if anything is unclear. And I hope everybody will have fun with this. And in the end, you will get a t-shirt for sure.
I'm not sure if the t-shirts are still around. You'll definitely get like badges on Holopin. I think the t-shirts were discontinued, maybe with the exception it's because of just too many people and too many people from places where it's hard to ship to. Yeah, so I think that was last year or the year before. But still, also the sad Yeah, the sad part is there's also a lot of extra spammers, and it was also kind of to reduce some of these spammers who are
You're
going there
killing
just
You're
for-
killing
for
this.
the
Stop talking
swag.
about the negative parts of it.
Ah!
My God.
Well, my point
Listen,
is
it's a
there, you
great
know.
opportunity, regardless of whether or not you get a shirt. Just go do it. It's going to be good for your careers. It's going to be good for you, and it's going to be great for your CV. So, you know.
Yeah,
Just
but don't be a
sit there.
spammer, because you know people who spam and do bad things. That's the reason why we cannot have good things.
That's true. That's true. Hey,
That's
listen, folks. I know some of you have been coming here watching for a very long time. We appreciate all the returning viewers that make this community what it is. Really, really fun to have the folks that are here. I know we've been away for a little bit. Last week, we took the week off. We really needed it to kind of revive ourselves. But if you like what we're doing, please hit the like button. Let us know that you appreciate the work that we're doing. It gives us motivation to continue bringing these episodes to you. And with that, Jan, there is some things happening with Meteor. And as usual, we ask you to give us the Meteor news.
Yeah, so it's Hacktoberfest, so there's a lot of new PRs coming in. Nilsson is hard at work on getting us ready for the new Meteor patch release, which will be 3.0.4. So kind of very quickly, what is this all going to have? We have updated web app dependencies. DDP server, DP client have removed underscore, and so that's one less dependencies in there. And also what I'm happy to, static HTML package, which probably all of you are using, usually brings in a lot of Blaze really specific dependencies, just because it uses some of the utilities functions in that in those packages. While with 3.0.4, that will no longer be happening. There is new static HTML utilities package, which extracts those utilities into its own package, so that you don't have to bring in all the other Blaze related stuff if you're not using Blaze. And probably in the future we'll be updating Blaze to also use that package as well, and to make sure that everything is more in line. We have quite a few fixes for Cordova and Windows specifically, and also one of the open pull requests still around there is for the newest Node 20, which should be, I think, Node 20.9 or something like that. 20.18, and a few other more fixes are on the way, and potentially more updates to the web app package as well, particularly kind of taking in advantage that we have the latest Express available, and we don't have to import a lot of the other packages like body parser, which are integrated in Express, and JSON compiler, all that stuff. So that's coming in. And next, we also have plans already started for Node 22. In particular, we already have a pull request from me to get Node 22.0 in to start and get the testing early, because most likely Node 22.10 is going to be the switch to LTS version of Node. So Meteor 3.1 is going to jump, unless we run into some unforeseen circumstances, to Node 22. So keeping with the promise to be with the latest LTS version of Node on that. We'll also have version 3.1 also include the official roles package. I'm right now just struggling a bit with Git not doing exactly what I would like it to. So I have to kind of convene with Natural to see what we can do to get it fixed. And hopefully we also get in all the other underscore removals, so that we have that chapter that Harry Adele started. Was it like 2 years back already, or maybe some crazy time around that? So we kind of close that chapter and can move with other improvements. So those are the official developments, and stay tuned for more information as we kind of progress on that. And with that, guys, I would like to ask you to hit the like button if you haven't done so already. It's somewhere down here. It really helps us with the algorithms. We hope. One never knows. That's a problem with closed black box software like YouTube. We just press our buttons and hope that it's going to fix or help you in some way.
All right, guys. So is that the end of the news? I'll be honest with you. I've been popping back and forth. We're gonna do something a little different today, and actually, tell me, Küster, are we gonna also be following up with your components bit later on? Okay.
Yeah,
So I don't see that in the program notes here. So if you drop that in, that'll be great.
I forgot to add it, but in the end, we can, after our next format.
If you could do me a favor, just drop that in there. That would help me navigate things as we go through. And in any case, we're gonna pop into a discussion now on the topics that I talked about at the very opening. First of all, before we get into discussing the issue with the OSS model, the open source software model being under siege, and really, trying to understand what this means to the future of projects like Meteor. I want to talk a little bit about this other crazy concept that's coming out where people are talking about, not needing junior devs. I mean, what the hell do they mean? No more junior devs. I'll tell you where this is coming up from. There is an article that was written by Helen Lee at Business Insider recently called AI Coding. The title is AI Coding Tools Means There Are No More Junior Developers. Very provocative. And she makes the case that that this is something's going on in my notes here, and and it's changing stuff as I'm looking. That this is, this is a trend that's going to be happening, and because we have these tools available to us, the things that we normally put to a junior developer is going to be handled by these generative LLMs and these generative AI tools. And I think this is just kind of insane. There are a couple of things that make this relevant to the folks here that use Meteor, that use tools like Meteor, is that every time we get a lever, there is this tendency on the business side or the people on the outside to say, hey, the folks that actually build things, engineers, now that they have this extra tool, their skill is devalued in some way. We know that MeteorJS, for instance, makes building applications much easier because what it does is it removes a lot of the attendant cruft, if you want to call it that developers have to put up with. That is not directly related with building an application. Things like configuring, figuring out what your database is going to be, configuring your build system and your build tools, all of those things that don't actually, create value to the customer are things that developers typically have to pick up and work with and figure out on their own. And that's not the tool, that's not the material that's going to get you really productive and be able to help a customer. It's actually looking at those business cases and then transforming them into code, right? And finding out what workflows you can automate and what things you can do to make the customer's problem either disappear or get minimized. And so I see this again and again that people have said, oh, you're building with Meteor, that means like your rate should be lower. No, it's kind of silly. That argument's been made again and again, whether or not you're using Meteor, whether or not using some other, build tool or other system. And the fact is the skill behind getting requirements, transforming them into code, making sure that your code runs properly, that it's properly tested, and that you account for edge cases is the developer skill, not just the fact that you're writing all this other attendant stuff. And when you have tools that can make it easier, you're far more productive and you can do more on the business side for the end user. Generative AI is going to make some of those things a little easier because you can get full, code snippets based on accurately asking the proper questions. But I also think that what's missing is the fact that Gen AI gets things wrong a lot. And you're still going to need the skills in order to evaluate and figure out whether or not that is happening. So the question is, when you hear things like this, I think that for younger people or people that are transitioning into a development role from something that non-traditional, is it worth building programming skills? I think articles like this promote that misconception around the value of engineering skills when assistive tools are included. I mean, we heard things like this when Stack Overflow showed up and autocomplete made its way into IDEs, but it didn't, by adding these features, it didn't remove the fact that people that are starting for the first time are still inexperienced. They're still junior. So I don't know where this comes in. I'll add one thing before we go into discussion, because I'm just kind of coloring this right now so we can talk about it a bit. But there was an article recently, which is kind of funny, from the Register about a developer who decided to let an AI tool, an AI agent, take over. And what he wanted was this AI agent to make an SSL connection to another system, and just told him, listen, just find this computer, log into it, and then that's all I want you to do. Didn't really propose anything beyond that. But he didn't give him an address. It didn't give him any further information. So it had to go out and discover where that computer was, log in. In any case, this AI agent ended up promoting itself to sysadmin and trashed the boot sequence of the computer because it took initiative on its own. And this is a story by Thomas Claiborne at the Register. A lot of fun to read, but it's also a cautionary tale about relying too much on tools that are not mature yet. So there is this other article at Fast Company by Richard Baguli on 10 different ways AI can make your programming job easier. I think that's the relevant concepts or thoughts behind what these tools are today, is they can help developers be more productive. But I don't think that, the idea that they're going to make your juniors experts, or they're going to obviate the need for juniors, and you're just somehow you're going to have to transition people from being, having no experience to having a ton of experience just because generative AI tools are there. So I've chatted a lot. I'm sure that the On brothers have their opinions on this too. And so why don't we just break this down bit by bit, in terms of AI coding tools, meaning that there's not going to be any more junior developers. I'm gonna go to StoryTeller first. I know Küster has a lot to add to this.
I have.
StoryTeller, pop in.
Yeah, I have. You could say, let's just go into it. I think this is how people are, or kind of how the two sides are seeing this. Managers see that, oh, now we can get rid of those pesky developers, and developers, now we can get rid of those pesky managers. I think right now, from my side, how I'm seeing it's we can get rid of the pesky managers, because kind of this is the situation, I think, with the code, that before we were coding for 2 hours and debugging for 6. And now ChatGPT generates something in 5 minutes, and we spend 24 hours debugging that and wanting to restore the world. So that's that. But at the same time, there's definitely, first of all, I don't think there's nothing we can really stop, kind of the progress moving forward. At the same time, I've talked about this in the past. I think we kind of will have to probably transition. There's, I think, going to be downsizing of the field, or maybe the AI is going to completely crash and burn. Nothing is really going to change much, or we might be entering into an age of, let's say, a flood of cheap, AI made websites that kind of, say, similar to how we've seen with other things that are just there, kind of more like a quick get rich quick scheme, and are might be like noble at first, but then everybody copies, does the same, and the long-term value really is nothing. And of course, since there's no actual programmer behind it to maintain it, it doesn't really go anyway. But at the same time, as we mentioned previously, the dock workers strike. Maybe that was just only a prior discussion. There was recently dock workers strike in America that just kind of got suspended for now. And the thing is that in other countries in the world, there are no dock workers. It's all automated. There's just like one guy, that's just like sipping coffee and looking, on the dashboard that all the lights are green, and that's it. So that might be our future as well. In which case, I'll probably go into politics or something else, because I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
But as you said, Alim, kind of going back with all of these things, these are all little things, and it's not one thing. There's also other things. Another big part is that now people who have no idea whatsoever about the fuel and com, and are asking, why am I so expensive? Why are my services so expensive when ChatGPT can do it much faster and cheaper, or for free for them? So, or some other service that's adapted to specific use case. Big thing is, as you said, it's kind of very early on, so I think there is a lot of development, but at the same time, question is, if people are underestimating it, overestimating it. We shall see. Right now, so there's definitely a lot of that, and as a result, there is this, as we, if I go again back to, to this meme, if I can, to stage, here we go. The developers, there is going to be the push for management, towards replacing with AI, also because it's cool. And I see something similar when I talk with Literary Universe with writers. Are very much also worried there that they're not like worried that writing is going to disappear because AI is going to write us, because they are oftentimes, when they kind of go into the AI, okay, this is not really doing it, but they're afraid that we might lose an entire generation or two of writers, because instead of actually writing, honing your skills, they're just going to write prompts and will become, prompt masters to generate, great outputs for a while. But we might lose at least potentially a generation of writers, and I think the same thing potentially here, especially with the push here towards potentially losing the junior developers as well. We might have to see the same thing. And finally, also very interesting the point you made there about whenever we get some new tools that allows us to move faster, instead of kind of allowing us to refocus the energy on some other more important things, immediately it's like, okay, how can we reduce your cost, or similar thing, or kind of that's sometimes I would say probably never said so openly, but in the effect, that's kind of what's happening there.
I want to give Küster a chance to chat about this, but I'm going to just really encapsulate this really easily. 30 years ago, when I was on a VAX VMS system and we were writing, job control language code, we had in the computing room at the computing center, we had all of the manuals, and it was like a rack size thing. And you would go to the back of the room and the manuals were printed, and they were, they were against the back of the room, and it was volumes of them. And you'd go there and you'd actually flip through the manual. There was only one manual, because I think there was just, from deck, it was very expensive, so you didn't have your own copy. And then later on, we had these manuals on CD-ROM, and then after CD-ROM, we got PDFs that we could, download directly and and peruse ourselves and search, right, with a search interface. And then, we've gone on where others have come in and said, well, yeah, the manuals are great, but the thing is, you really want to be able to do this in code. And then we have things like Stack Overflow that showed up, right? And then all of a sudden later on, we had, autocomplete and assistive development that showed up in our IDE. So we didn't have to go to the manuals. We didn't have to go directly to Stack Overflow. We had that here. I don't think, when these tools came out, yes, I think there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt about whether or not developers are necessary. And it's the kind of same argument that's made again and again, like, well, now that we have these things, do you really need to be a developer? I think that there are skills that developers bring to the table that help with this. The other part that I also want to mention is, from that meme that you have about managers want to get rid of developers. It's like, here's the thing, like managers, and I've been a manager and I've run departments and so on, right? So I know this, and I have an MBA, and so, management thing. But here's the thing, like in an engineering organization, managers manage developers, developers manage code, right? So if you get rid of the developers, then managers have to manage code. And if you don't have those skills to understand the code base that you've got, how are you going to do it? The other thing too is, like, if you've got a very sprawling set of APIs and so on, I'm not sure that you can have an LLM rationalize its organization, the culture behind it, how it gets maintained. And so I think you still need developers. I don't see it.
I think, Alim,
hang on. I'm going to give
just apologies. I just very quickly, but are you making the mistake? I think there is that, people who make these decisions are like one or two level above the managers. So they have, no concept, or understanding of these things whatsoever. So I think there is, in order to understand and properly address the problem, you need to know that, at least something about the domain. And if you don't know, then you kind of rely on, how people sometimes, often, who don't even know either, like journalists, about the domain, summarize it to you. But to you.
So here are two things to consider. The first thing is that, of course, there will be a shift in the working structure. Yes, there will be less junior developers, maybe. But I know for sure there will be definitely more AI engineers in organizations, because that's the people you need to have your locally focused AI tools that make them aware of the company structure, make them aware of internals, make them aware of where to get the data and so on, to provide context, to provide at least some meaningful response. Because if you just rely on things like ChatGPT, which is a very general purpose LLM, then you will not produce very domain-specific code. So understanding the domain-driven design, requirements engineering, AI engineering, I would say, I would call that right now. These will be things that where new refocus will happen, in my opinion. And there's one more thing, and this is something I already talked at my work group at the university about. It will not immediately kill off the people, but rather raise the complexity of what people need to know, the skill level they need, because understanding to work with AI is a skill itself. And for this skill, you need to have your own kind of rationalization, analytical thinking, and so on, because you need to think in context of your domain, in context of what you're trying to engineer, in order to get the best output of the LLM. And there will be people who will be better at that, and then there will be people that just throw in anything at the LLM and waste these 24 hours, as you showed in your meme, fixing the bugs, because they're just not capable of knowing, okay, this is the right situation to use LLM. This is not the right situation to use LLM. So there will be definitely still the requirement for juniors, but there will be a much more gap in the next years between those who are capable of using these tools the right way and those who are not. That's how I think this will affect the structure here.
I mean, getting back to this though, I think the argument though that that having a generative AI tool that can write code for you means that all of a sudden, if you don't have much experience, you're all of a sudden a very experienced developer, is just bull crap, because there's still judgment that comes into play. Yes, you can get some code that works, but do you understand how it works? Do you understand, why it does what it does? Do you understand its performance capabilities, right? If you say, well, you know what, I have a piece of code that got generated, and I'm going to ask the AI to make it as performant as possible, and it does that. Can you explain to another engineer, how it does it?
Yeah.
A lot of what we do is communication,
and then in context of the domain, especially.
Yeah, and we're communicating with each other. We're communicating with our up levels, right? We're communicating with customers. And so I don't think that, that disappears. And all of those things, understand the culture of how we communicate, right? How information gets passed and back and forth, how we evaluate things, how we make decisions. Those are things that only time and experience gives you. And so I don't see that an LLM just, makes all of that disappear. That to me is part of what being a junior is, in terms of learning how to, get to each of the next levels.
This is also the difference between a human and a tool. So because if you think you can upgrade LLMs to do the work of the humans, then you're degrading your humans on the level of a tool. And then this is anyway a company culture that is usually not really on the road to success, and maybe it works for some, especially if they're dominating their market. But apart from that, especially when you're in a startup, you will not be able to progress anywhere with that kind of thinking, right?
I think we're going to see a difference in terms of how these things get viewed in, engineering versus non-engineering led companies, right? I think companies that have built engineering cultures will understand that this is an assistive tool and will use it that way. And companies that are really just kind of like, bean counters focused on just the cost are going to try, and some will succeed. I mean, let's be honest, some will succeed, right? But I think if you look at the bell curve distribution on this, the majority of them will find that, it only takes them so far. And then they may have to deal with a legacy of some code base that they have absolutely no idea how to reason about, because it was all just kind of like put out there and it wasn't rationalized in any way. So let's move on from this. So guys, if you've got your own ideas about this, if you have your thoughts about whether or not, Helen Lee is correct, and there are no more junior developers, we'd love to hear from you. If you have thoughts that align with where we're going, and maybe you have some insights that we have not brought up, we'd love to hear them and share them with everyone else. All right. Now, on the outset of this, and the provocative title in the in YouTube is that that the OSS model is dying, is it going away? And that is something that we've been talking about again and again and again through the life of this podcast, is the fact that Meteor itself is an open source project, and we've got two of our members here who work on the open source side of it. It matters a lot to us about what that marketplace looked like. And it's a marketplace of ideas. And when other parties come in and appropriate those ideas as their own without contributing back to it in some way, it's a violation. And it's a deeply felt violation. And we've seen this again and again in the case of, back in 2016, 2017, MongoDB came up with the Affero license model. It's a dual license model where there is a community open source portion of it. And then in terms of the hosted runtime, you got to get a commercial license from them in order to do that. I think they were trying to balance the desire to stay within the open source space against against being exploited. Amazon had taken the code base at one point and created their own offering. Other companies were just hosting the application and making money off it without actually doing anything other than putting it up. And we've seen this also recently with the Redis Valkey split. And it's gotten so bad that some of these actors that get involved in this don't even hide what they're doing. I think it's safe to say that companies coming out of Y Combinator are very well regarded. We give them, a lot of credibility. Y Combinator has been the seed of some of the biggest companies that have come out and become, these unicorn, these mythical companies that have done very, very well. Gary Tan now runs it. Sam Altman was running it for a while. Paul Graham was the one that started it. So you've got some big names there. Gary Tan is a partner in a venture capital firm, and a couple of years ago he came in and took over as CEO. And there is a company called Pear. I can never pronounce it properly. PEARAI, that essentially forked an open source project, changed the names in the project, and then declared it as their own work. And they have added no new value to it or whatever. And what they ended up doing was they put a restrictive license on their fork, which once everybody who was looking at it realized that this was just a fork of some other open source project, they got really upset. And then Pear AI went back in and they made some changes. They said, haha, we didn't really mean to do this, but, and so on and so forth. Y Combinator has basically come in through Gary Tan, has basically come in and said, look, what's the problem? And I think that there is the problem. What they've done is they have basically taken somebody else's work and declared it as their own. And the VC world is effectively legitimizing this kind of behavior, which really, I think, puts a lot of pressure on people that put their effort and time into building open source software to say, is this something that we want to keep doing? Because if people are going to take it, they're going to benefit financially from it. We get no credit. What's the reason for us doing this? So anyway, that is the context that we're talking about this. This is the concern that we have. And Jan, you've got a story that you're talking about with regard to this notion of fair source licensing. And I want to turn that over to you right now so that you can bring that up as part of the discussion here.
Indeed, it's a response, but also I think kind of this shows, I would say, kind of in the wider sense of things, how once mighty institutions are kind of falling, because part of the Y Combinator, what made it so great was the exclusivity, and one of the kind of related to this topic was that Y Combinator has been you could say scaling, and instead of kind of continuing back, but because you can't really scale this and kind of focusing on the quality, they started scaling in size. So just they're taking more and more startups in, because of course more and more people want in, and this is, I would say, one of the big red flags that this, you could say, once mighty institution has really went in the wrong way, and it's kind of heading to doom. Because big thing about Y Combinator was the exclusivity and being in the exclusive club. But if you can take everybody, including you could say arguably scammers, then the entire value gets down, and it things the brand. And these things don't happen overnight. It's usually once you see things like this, that means that the culture and other things have gone so bad that it's oftentimes very hard to recover from. But it kind of really underscores the story, in particular the issue. We've seen it, as you mentioned, with Redis. We've seen it with MongoDB in the past. Again, when some other big company takes the the open source, starts making money on it, and does not contribute anything back. There is, I would say, this.
So how does the fair source come into this?
So this is a new license, similar to other core. It was started with Sentry. Let me kind of jump here to the official website. So fair source, in essence, is trying to solve similar issue that other previous licenses also tried to solve, and it's to protect the company core business and while still kind of doing open source. The big thing about it is that after 2 or 4 years, depending on which fair source license you use, the license switches to some sort, for example, MIT license for that old code. So and it allows you cannot use it for personal use and everything, but if you want to use it commercially, then you have to have an official license. So in this way, it kind of protects the company behind it to run services on the open source, make money, and keep on developing the software. You can use it personally, but if you want to make money out of it, you have to go through them to get license, or there are other restrictions. So that's kind of what it is. I am very
I see there's a
quote sympathetic
here
towards this.
I see there's a quote here, I think that sums this up. Open source. Sorry, hold on one second. Let me see if I can just turn this thing off.
From your calendar, Animals in Society starts in 30 minutes.
Kill the machines.
Yeah. Computer, please go quiet, silent.
All right. So that's as I was.
Yeah. So I was going to just say the quote that I see here is open source isn't a business model. Open source is a distribution model. It's a software development model primarily. And it places severe limits on what business models are available because of the licensing terms. So that's the problem I think they're trying to solve, is the business model versus the distribution model. Okay. So if I understand this correctly, it's like it starts with it starts being very restrictive, almost like a closed source model. Fair use, or not?
No, it's more like it's there's like open core, delayed open source publication. It's part of it, and so it's kind of, you could say, people who are hardcore open source will accuse it that it's kind of playing very loose with the terms. But it has this it still means that the code is public. You can look on it, but you can do all the things that you can do normally on GitHub, fork it, all that stuff, but it protects the business that unless they have like a commercial license or something that nobody else can use it for the 2 years since that version is published with that license, and after 2 years or 4 years it kind of goes to open source version of the license. So it's not even that restrictive. It just makes sure it's pretty much like a patent for 2 years that yes, we have this for 2 years, and we can have we have 2 years to build business on it, and that's that. So, but it's important. So like the last 2 years are protected, and everything beyond that is you can use it. You can do whatever the open source license allows for that. So
is this a license model that people can use? Is it available?
Yes, they have 2 versions, I remember correctly, of the fair source license. You can see already, Sentry, CodeCov, Git Butler, even Kagan Keegan, is already like using this.
Mhm.
So they've came really kind of with it. The big thing here is, I think, to note here, it's not replacement for I would say closed source software. So for example, for Liter Universe, where there isn't really any reason for it to be open source or the code open,
Mhm.
then it's it doesn't make sense, because as you kind of mentioned, this is a distribution thing. I would love if we could have code that that I could look into code of other applications out there, but currently, well, and this is part of attempting to do the solution, is to go in and kind of restrict it so that the companies behind it can make money on it, and so that other people don't come in and don't kind of steal their hard work without having at least them having a chance to establish themselves.
Sure. So I see that the licenses that are available there's some the basic one that anybody can use right now is what they call the functional source license. It's a most permissive non-compete license that converts to Apache 2 or MIT after 2 years, designed for SaaS companies that value both user freedom and developer sustainability. So I guess you could use this right now.
Yep.
So that's pretty awesome.
If this is your model to distribute things, I think that's the that is the big caveat there. Can as I was mentioning, open source and similar, that's a distribution model for thing, not a business model. And we've seen in the history, as we've mentioned, some of the examples that or as a Meteor itself can be a good example in the past, that it might not be the successful business model, that you need to do something maybe different with it.
I don't see any reason why somebody couldn't fork this and then maybe change it doesn't have to be on the second year. You could change this to whatever year you think you need the protection for, right? Obviously, you're basically going to be making a custom version of this license for yourself and doing that. But again, I think it's a really interesting project. That's pretty cool.
Indeed.
So you also have a resource here for people that if they have any questions with regard to software licensing, they can go and find some information.
So this is TLDR legal, and it explains the licenses to you in plain English. So, because let's be honest, a lot of the licenses are kind of difficult, and you have here, this like, okay, what can you do, what you cannot do, what you must do with it, and all that stuff, and some what people are using it, some description. You can also see the full text, which in my classes is like super short, but some of the other are pretty expensive. So this big thing is and I'm struggling with licensing for some of my upcoming projects as well, trying to figure out kind of how to put them. Even like the fair license is not what I want, because it's like for a package. So that's a bit annoying there to figure out what to do. So, and I think a lot of the times people just publish it under MIT, and for most part, that's fine. That's all it is, because it's just a side project, or you don't really expect anything from it. But I would like to encourage everybody to really think about it. How to kind of want to progress, because once you publish it under MIT and or other permissive licenses, it's almost impossible to kind of get back off from that, especially if you want to then later on build a business from it. And of course, there'll be developers who just want to build and get things out there, people for use it, and kind of licensing really doesn't kind of come to us naturally or anything like that. So but it's a very important thing, and especially sadly, because kind of going back to the main topic here is, I think recently we had quite a few, say, bad actors come into the community, not just from state actors trying to infiltrate and use the software for bad things, but in general there has been, with the proliferation of open source, a lot of I would say, I think there's kind of like the social expectation, at least I have that, if you are a big successful companies that's using the open source to make you money, that you should contribute something back to the community that has built the open source that you're successful on. And sadly, most companies don't do that, even though they have the means. And then of course they are like excuse, we cannot do that because of financial this and that. And I'm at a point where I'm not interested in hearing it because I've heard it all before, and it's just an excuse.
Well, let's get Küster in here now, because he's been sitting patiently.
No problem. I think this is also a topic where you can see things are just done because it's sexy and because you get good public relations. Hey, we have a product A and it's open source. Great. The implications of doing something open source is not always thought to the end, I think. And if you're building a company about an open source business model, this is a high risk business model. It's like this. I mean, you can't 100% expect an income stream from the open source product itself. You have to sell some services around it, and you have to design your business model in a way that you can make sure that these income streams will come in. And you also have to think about, when you make your core free, not only open source, but free, like with an MIT license, you have to consider people forking this thing and just simply doing their own thing if they don't agree with your company goals. And that's how open source is for. That's the very design of these licenses. This is because some software should be free. Of course, commercial product XYZ doesn't need to be free, but there are tools that need to be free because it's just the way it has to be in order to make the most out of it. It's like for these commodity things, like general purpose infrastructure tools that every developer needs to use. They should be under a free license in order to have if that wouldn't be the case, it's the case. And if that wouldn't have been the case, the overall development system would never have grown to the point where we are now. And I think that people, when they do these business strategies and want to include open source somehow in their strategies, they just overlook these things. And this is on my end. This is the way why this is all flawed, because they, from the beginning, it's already faulty from the beginning. Why people do open source. And there's another thing. I think the biggest drawback was, and this is what we didn't talk here, but when Red Hat was moving from CentOS to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, this is even beyond what we're doing here in the web development community. But what they did, that was a move that affected much more people, because basically every enterprise level server Linux was CentOS and free. You could even use it on AWS. You could just say, hey, let me use CentOS. And now it's a different licensing scheme. Now it's Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And I mean, Red Hat was the first. I think they were the first that crossed the $1 billion income border with an open source tool or around open source technology. And still they got into financial problems because they have all these logic, all these plans, everything, these rules of the market, everything around them that pressures them to have a constant income flow. They have to pay people and so on. And then on the other side, the dynamics of the open source system. And there could be any day, could be a change in the system, because it's made of people, it's made of thousands of decisions, and sometimes there is a fork that is better. Think about Nextcloud being the fork of OwnCloud. Think about LibreOffice being the fork of OpenOffice. And these forks lived on. They are the de facto tools right now and not their commercial counterparts. So this is, again, something that needs proper strategy and planning in the beginning. That's my 2 cents on this. And I'm just asking something right now. Do we still have 5 minutes for our little understanding Meteor topic?
We do.
Yeah, I just kind of want to very quickly also kind of close this in, because kind of also going back to the VoidZero, it's like 4.6 million seed funding. That's of course quite a lot of money, but at the same time it's I would say relatively cheap. I've heard from people that are even older than me in development, everything, back in the days you had to actually pay for the tools that you use today, as you mentioned. So imagine if you had to buy the Babel, buy ESLint, and everything else. You get most of it for free, which is what, as you said, allowed for this. But I think now we are kind of also getting to a place, as I was said multiple times in the past, where we might kind of have the crash of the open source, and open source will only kind of be around the big projects or the projects that nobody really care about, and anything in the middle is just not going to make it, because to kind of get from the gap from starting up and actually being successful and manage to actually build a company or something around it, or even if you yourself want to maintain yourself managing something, unless companies, I would say, really step up, we'll get into that you only have the top tools and the people around that, and nobody else is of course with occasional some rocket starts and other people kind of get funding from elsewhere, will not be able to kind of reach that gap from pretty much just starting up to being able to live off it, or even being able to maintain all of those things. And I'll have for myself to say more at the complete end. But Jan, what do you want to tell us about Meteor?
So today, as you know, we always have a segment of Understanding Meteor, and it's sponsored by Galaxy. And it's nice to have this very integrated following our discussion on open source, because Galaxy is, for example, a commercial service around an open source product or an open source tool. And as you know, Meteor could be hosted on your own platform, but you could also use, of course, Galaxy for the fastest and most integrated experience of deploying Meteor to the target infrastructure you choose on Galaxy. And what I want to show you today is a follow-up on what I've shown you 2 weeks ago, and that was my recently announced BlazeUI components. And why is this now Understanding Meteor if it's something that is my own project? Okay, it's not 100% my own project, but it's basically a full open source suite of a open BlazeUI component system to integrate Tailwind and build reusable components with Blaze in a very similar fashion, from, for example, React, from Vue, maybe even at the same time. I tried to incorporate concepts of these, and let me show you how you can set this up in a minute. This is really easy now. So if you would give me quickly the screen sharing, then
There you go.
sharing the screen, if you would activate it, please. Okay, so when you're you can simply
Can you
use
increase the size, please?
even more. Okay,
Yeah.
let's do this. So is this better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, so you can easily clone and start with the starter project I'm providing you now. So you just enter git clone, git at github.com /BlazeUI/starter.git. It's cloning this. And if you go into the starter, this is basically a Meteor project. It's designed for you to get started with BlazeUI out of the box, no configuration required. And you just enter meteor npm install. As you know, if you would clone your own project, it's installing, and then you run meteor npm start. It's already a little bit opinionated, setting the port for you. Oh, there is already a. You're not in the Meteor project directory. And again, what is going on here? Oh, why did it not? Sorry. This is so embarrassing. No problem. Let me simply copy these things here into this folder. I don't know why I just committed it again, and I somehow missed the Meteor folder there. So, okay, let me just run this again, and I will commit it so that for you it's basically one. Sorry, let me check this out. Okay, this is unbearable. Why it just worked before? Okay,
The gods of demos are not with you today.
no, it's
okay. I mean, this is
the last time. No, I just committed it and updated it and cloned it right now, and I must have forgotten something. So let me quickly fix that here. So first of all, this is wrong. This is I published a theme, a default theme, so you don't have to install a theme. So first of all, installing this. Okay. Is it installed? No, it's not installed. Let me do this quickly. Minus save.
so viewers are seeing how the sausage is made.
Yeah. Basically, I created a theme. Okay, so this theme it's also in the. Let me show you the BlazeUI quickly. This is how it should look like. This is the website. So there is this BlazeUI mono repo, and there is now a theme inside. That's the Milky Way theme. That's the default theming that makes basically everything looks like on the demo website here. This is something you get free out of the box. And this theme is also integrated in the starter package, as well as the components that I have here. And I just wonder why this is the main. This is the. Oh, it's.
Do you have a running version someplace?
Yeah, I have a running version now.
Why don't we just switch to the running version?
No, I just made it running now.
Okay.
That was just. I don't know why it wasn't committed.
It's okay. It's okay. You'll fix it in the back, and then.
So
and
the
then
idea
they
was
can
that
download
you just clone this and then you have it all out of the box. I just don't get it why it wasn't.
It's
why
all
it
right.
wasn't
Just move on. Just move on.
committed. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm on localhost 4343, and then yeah. Okay, why is that happening? I can show you. So if you ever worked with Tailwind, you know that there is this Tailwind configuration, and I was including in this Tailwind configuration something on top of it because I wanted to play around with Font Awesome, which I created an integration for, but this integration is still not in the core project. It's a little bit harder to integrate things like Font Awesome being covered by your Tailwind project, and at the same time not importing all icons, which just bulk up your client bundle by 1.5 megabytes. So this is something I'm still figuring out. On the demo website, I'm already having a single icon import. So if you're running this website, it's really fast loading. It's not 1.5 megabytes. It's really just loading the icons it needs, but it's still not generalized to the point that it's usable for the general public, because it's really focused on Font Awesome, and there might be others. So let me show you something now. Now I got it working, and then I can talk a little bit about these components and why this is awesome, or why you should think about this. So if you take a look here at this website right now, this is the basic starter website you have, and it's really minimal. It's not forcing you to do anything besides that. You have your Blaze web app, you have a main HTML site, and then there, just for example, just for you to understand how this is working, there are some components already being integrated here from these BlazeUI components collection. And this components collection, this is something I also provided you open source for free, basically. And these are currently like 20 components or something like this. So and there will be even more, because I'm using this myself for other projects, and it will grow and grow. And this is an easy starter, because the idea is clone it, start it, use it. Not configuring, no hassle around in config files and things like this. And if you want to change things, if you say like, yeah, but I don't want to use your theme, that's totally fine. I mean, there is these, you can use the main CSS and override all the variables if you want. So you could just change the variables, because the theme is currently, if we go back to the themes here, the theme itself is configured to use CSS root variables under the hood. So if you don't agree with the coloring scheme, then you can simply change that. And if you want, you can even extend the theme to something else. Of course, you have to incorporate that into the components, but this is also possible. So here is, for example, a hello component. This is just something like here, when you click on it, it will grow or shrink. This is just assigning some Tailwind classes. And this component has simply a name and a base class. And then it has an internal state. And then it has a function that resolves to attributes. Because in BlazeUI, everything is rendered once into the using the attributes. So you have a DOM element, and all the attributes are rendered reactively once the props change or once the state change. And now the React people were saying like, hey, but this is like React. And I mean, yes, this is like React, but it's still, you're in Blaze, and it's much easier in Blaze to, for example, import things from the outside. So if I want to incorporate something here, I don't have to write an effect or something like this. I have to know what I'm doing, of course, but I can also have my, I don't know, attribute foo, and then like get from anywhere. And then I can incorporate that here as well. You shouldn't do that all the time, but it's possible. And that's for me important. I want the flexibility and the freedom to do that, right? And then you can still have all these uncreated helpless events, everything that you know from Blaze just being added here, and then you register that to BlazeUI, and BlazeUI under the hood does everything for you. And I hope this is my idea is making this an input for further development of Blaze, or an idea of, hey, look, you could abstract even further. You could make Blaze in a much different way. You don't need to write these super expressive, super long components. You could abstract away these things a lot if you want. And let me just finish up one more thing, and then I will commit that and upload the things, and then it's all good. So
so Jan, out of these 20 plus
Mhm.
components that you have, like,
Yep.
can you name like 2 or 3 of them that you think are really
Yes, there's
functionally,
one thing I want to show you as well, by the way. Just give me a second. Star as components. So what I'm doing here is I'm registering all components from the beginning. You could also just pick single components and use them via dynamic imports, and then only import those components that you need on your current page. So then you are simply on the safe side. Let me quickly check if this is now working the way I want it to. See no errors, because then, yeah, this is all good now. Regarding components, there is, for example, I covered it as well. There is the use case. You have a component like the dialog. And this dialog, it's simply like you click on it and then it opens a dialog, and then you can style things inside it the way you want. It's the same, by the way, with the so-called sheet, which is just jumping on the side, whether you say left, right, top, bottom. And they share basically the same code base. And if you take a look at it, there are different sub elements here. You have a sheet trigger. That's the button that is initially rendered. But then you have something like an overlay, and you have content, header, and so on. You can very granular build your own sheet here to make this work. And now there is one thing. How do these child components know that the parent component has a certain state? Usually you would do something like prop drilling. Yeah, you have your property and you pass it down to the children. And for BlazeUI, I created something that enables you. Let me just open the dialog to make this a little bit more understandable for you. So in the HTML, you simply have these dialog trigger, content, header. You have these components. You have the BlazeUI attributes, resolving all your attributes. You don't need to put anything in there because the whole logic for attributes is inside them. And these dialog components, these are so-called root components. They can provide something like, from React as a context. And also you have this parent component. It creates the context, and the child components, they only need to run for state, use from context. So they're like these consumers for the context, no matter how deep they are in there. And then they can, for example, the dialog trigger is a child of the dialog, but it can manipulate the state, because this is the one that will tell the component to open or to close or anything else. And this is basically now provided for you as well. The only thing you need to do is you have your root component, and it needs to provide this context from a helper that is designed. And then in the child component, they need to use the state from context. And I hope that this shows that Blaze is pretty capable of doing all these things you can do with other front-end engines, and that it's not some outdated dinosaur and is not working somehow with Tailwind. I mean, this is working pretty solid, and it's doing all the things you want. I'm also currently doing currently doing an auto form integration. This is somewhere else, so that, for example, this form, this is an auto form, auto generated using the BlazeUI components. So I hope that this is something that people like and want to use in a project. Give it a try. You can look up on GitHub, on github.com/BlazeUI, and then there are multiple repositories there. There's the main repository. It's all published on as Meteor packages. You can view it on Packosphere. You can use the Milky Way theme I provided. This is by the way just a general Tailwind theme. You could use it even for something else. That's totally fine. And there's also the starter repo, which I just have to commit the missing things. There is also instruction how to get it run. And I hope this will do some kind of an impact on the Blaze system again. Please leave a star if you like it. Open issues if something's not working. Get involved. It's Hacktoberfest. I'm eager to see any contributions, and then let's see if this will push Blaze back into the arena.
Yeah,
You know,
very quick. What is the link to the repository?
Yeah, I'm posting it in the chat again. It's github.com/BlazeUI. BlazeUI, and then I can, yeah. This is my 2 cents for understanding Meteor today.
awesome. Thank you so much. Folks, if you've been lurking in the channel, if you've been here for a bit, for the folks that have already subscribed, thank you. We are up to, I believe it's 284 subscribers now. We'd like to get to 300 by the end of the month. So if you could, please hit the subscribe button, help get us a little more visibility in the YouTube environment. And with that, I think we're going to move on to StoryTeller. You've got a conference coming up, correct?
Yeah. Before that, though, I want to quickly do a reminder before we go into conferences, all the other awesome stuff. Just switching here, that there is a petition for Oracle to relinquish its JavaScript trademark, which could be considered abandoned. So I think this is interesting for everyone here to at least consider. So I'm posting that again in the chat. And yes, I have in 3 weeks, is it 3 weeks? Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, no, 4 weeks at this time. The conference will be over, so a little bit over 3 weeks is the conference where I'll be talking about Meteor and its history and what can we learn from it. If you are interested in helping me to make this awesome, please go to my GitHub sponsors and sponsor me there. It really helps. Right now, a bit not in a best situation, so every sponsorship, everything on that will help, and you will get this is a special promotion till the end of the year, full access to my newsletter, even if it's just a one-time donation. And I will be sending that newsletter for September tomorrow latest.
Okay, and where is this conference? Do you have the date also? The actual date?
Yes, let me put that up. So it's called Open Source Summit Japan. It will be on the 28th and 29th of October. So in 3 weeks, 2 days, 9 hours in Tokyo. So if by chance you are somewhere in the area, also let me know so that we can, come in and hang out and talk Meteor and other awesome stuff.
Have they put up the speaker list yet on that, or?
Yes, it's all under schedule.
Okay.
And you can scroll down all the way till Tuesday. Let's see if I'm still here. Yes. Over here we go. Once it refreshes, surviving project abandonment.
Excellent.
Let me, guys, give you also the link in the chat for that as well. So that's that. I will have more resources and all that stuff coming up as I kind of finish up things.
So, folks, if you want to see StoryTeller in real life, this is a way to do it. And Japan should be a lot of fun. This is Tokyo.
Indeed.
So, big city, Tokyo. A lot of fun to be there. I'm looking forward to going there one day myself. It's not in the stars for me right now, but my hope is one day I'll make it over there. And Jan, you've been to Japan several times, right? You can give people a little bit of a tour around the place if they meet up with you.
Yes, absolutely. I also know local guides as well, so I can give lots of recommendations. Pretty much, if you are going to Japan, hit me up. I'll be happy to share all the tips and tricks of how to get around, what to do, what not to do, and all the fun places that you should not miss.
Absolutely. All right, and coming next week, StoryTeller, you said you're going to have only 2 streams this month because of the trip.
Yes, travel. One other Monday would be travel, and the other Monday would be the conference. So I will not do that, but I will after the conference on Wednesday. I will probably do like a special summary stream about how it went. Also, the talk is going to be recorded and published online. I don't think it will be live,
Okay.
or maybe it will be. So that's actually quick. Let me just quickly check here. No, I don't see any online registration. So yeah, it will be published afterwards. But of course, all my sponsors will get a preview of the talk before that, because I'll also be looking forward to your feedback as well.
Okay, and you're going to be on Discord in a couple of minutes. You have mentioned here. What's going on there?
Yes. So in a couple of minutes, I think we have kind of touched on a lot of interesting things, especially about losing open source. Kelly and other people here have quite some interesting opinions and discussion I would like to touch on. So if you're interested, I'll be after this in a couple of minutes. I'll be there so we can chat and maybe share some heated opinions on that. And finally, before we go, I want to kind of announce. So one thing I've been kind of working on this week, it's kind of my, let's say, bit of a test to expand my open source, not just sponsorship, but kind of offering what I'm doing and my work. I'm calling it, retainers per Alim your recommendation. And these are for companies who, want to be informed and want to participate in Meteor community, or maybe or maybe they can't be actively informed because they have, of course, businesses to run. So
sure,
or they have problems with Meteor 3 migration and all the stuff. So it's geared towards companies to help them to stay informed about what's going on in the community, to kind of through me also contribute to the community as well and get all the other benefits that I will describe. I will be sending it out to all of my sponsors for your companies to potentially consider, but also to so I can get your feedback, and also to other companies if you are interested in through me and or helping me out, and also helping hopefully yourself as well. I think I have enough of stuff to provide there through consultation, and even helping you with your projects, including Meteor migrations. Then send me an email. I will be happy to send it to you, and probably sometime next week I will also put it on my web as well to make sure that anybody else who might be interested can get there.
Okay. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap this up for the week. In coming episodes and going forward, we're going to be revamping the format of this program a bit to include some recommendations that we've gotten from Gabs and others about how we can improve this program as we go forward. We've been doing this for a little over a year. We want to keep on improving as we go, make it better and better, and make the experience something that you will enjoy. So we look forward to hearing feedback from you about the program and things that you want us to continue doing, things that you would like us to try, and things that perhaps you think, we don't need to do as often. So if you have some ideas and recommendations, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, we're going to be trying things on our own, and hopefully it'll be to your benefit and your enjoyment. And with that, I'm going to say, unless anybody else has something to add, have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Nice weekend, everybody.